שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בזכו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בזכו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים.
Israel ora v'simcha. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. Yom ze l'Israel ora v'simcha. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. Tzivita pikudim b'mamot Sinai. Shabbat u'modim lishmor b'chol shanai. Laruch lefanai ma'aseh dvarocha. Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. Yom ze l'Yisrael ora v'simcha. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. Yom ze l'Yisrael ora v'simcha. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha.
Shabbat Shalom. Glad to see all of you here on this gray Saturday morning. Let us find some comfort and uplift and light in our time together. We'll begin with an inspiration for prayer on page 66. Each of us enters this sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune. We rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow. Disappointments weigh heavily on them. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie in a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered. Ideals are betrayed and mocked. Answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we too are searching restore our hope and renew our faith. Whatever it is that brings you here this morning, whether in person or on live stream, we are grateful to be together. We turn to page 77 as we share in blessing, thanking God for our bodies, and then the cantor will lead us in our blessing and gratitude for our souls. On the top of page 77, we read together. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar umafli la'asot.
Elohai, neshama shenatata bi te'orai, atah v'rata, atah yitzarata, atah nefachta bi, v'atah meshamera b'kirbi. Shanishama b'kirbi, modani lefanecha, Adonai Eloi v'Elokei avotai, modani lefanecha, Adonai Eloi v'Elokei motai, Ribon kol hamasim, Adon kol neshamot, Baruch atah Adonai, asher beyado, nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol besar ish.
Elu divarim she'ein lehem shi'or, on page 88. We read together this teaching from Pirkei Avot, from the Talmud, that reminds us of our obligation to family, to friends, to stranger alike, to make our community more whole and more holy. Read with me. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people, but the study of Torah encompasses them all. On page 106, we rise now for the Khatsikaddish and remain standing through the Shema.
יתקדש שמי רבה, אמן. ועמד יברח חירותי, והמליך מלכותי. וחייכוני ומחוני וחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגולה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי עמיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשא בריחו. לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דם ירן ועלמה, ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
On page 110, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvarei choshech, Osei shalom uvarei et hakol, Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim, Uv tuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechokma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha selah, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu meherat le'oro, Baruch Ata Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot. On the bottom of page 113, we read together. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light-blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch Ata Adonai, Habocher Be'amo Yisrael Be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Mochoto Le'olam Va'ed. May be seated. We turn to page 116 and join together in Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al vavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, Ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
On the bottom of page 121, we share in our Geula prayer for redemption together, reading responsibly. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore.
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your hearts.
Each stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
שבחור גאולים לשמך שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
We rise for the Amidah on page 124.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, Elyon, Kol Mea Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר Kan Shemo Me'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, U'Mido Melech, Melech Memit U'Mechayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atah L'Chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Nekadesh et Shemecha ba'olam, Keshem Shemot Tishimoto B'Shnei Marom, Kakatuv Ayad Nevi'echa, V'kara Zel Zeh ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch ha'aretz, Kevodo, Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir Shemecha b'chol ha'aretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu Malkeinu, hu Moshiach ve'hu Yoshmi'enu, berachamav le'nei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohayich Tzion, ledor v'ador. Hallelujah. Ledor v'ador gigor lecha, ulenetzach netachim kedushatecha natish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated. On page 132, we sing in joy for the gift of Shabbat, Yismechu.
Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, korei oneg Shabbat.
On the top of page 135. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. On the bottom of 137, we read responsively. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy.
May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah.
Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess and cleanse our hearts to serve life well.
On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy.
Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. On page 138, we read together our Hoda'ah, prayer for Thanksgiving. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Page 140.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael onecha, barucheinu yotreinu kolanu kechad, ve'or panecha, ki ve'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha.
We take a moment now for our own private meditation.
Seder Kriyat Torah, service for the reading of Torah, page 245. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah. And let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. We rise in honor of the Torah.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, אין כמעשיך. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, ואומר משלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך לעולם ועד. Adonai os לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
On the bottom of page 247, we read responsively, "In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now.
Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it."
Baruch Shanatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shanatan Torah Torah. L'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti unomema Shemo yachtav. Lecha Adonai hagdolah והגבורה התפארת והנצח וההוד כי כה בשמיים ובארץ כי כה בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה ומתנשא לכל ראש. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים קם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יא לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יא לה 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 לה.
You may be seated. Just wanna, thank you. Appreciate it. We are in the middle, maybe towards the climactic moment of the Exodus saga, not just only in the book of Exodus, but the story of the Exodus that really is the foundation of our Passover observance and celebration. And in Parsha Bo, we have the final 3 plagues. That would be locusts, darkness, and the death of the firstborn. Each of these plagues is momentous in its own way. And there, as Bill Harris gave a Devar Torah yesterday, and shared a lot of interesting ideas and commentaries, one of the biggest things to think about in this Torah portion is the difference between Pharaoh hardening his own heart, his own obstinacy, versus God hardening Pharaoh's heart as a way to kind of bring the point home and complete the plague situation. My takeaway on that particular section, which I wrote about in my weekly Devar Torah in the weekly email, is that at a certain point we're so calcified in our perceptions that we lose the ability to even hear truths that may be inconvenient to our own reality. And that was what happened to Pharaoh in that particular moment. And it's a warning to us to not get so stuck in what we know to be the truth that we forget to hear other people's perspectives as well. Shabbat Shalom, I think we're done there. No, I'm just kidding. But the plague that I actually, if one could love a plague, the plague that I find to be the most compelling in all of the 10 plagues is the plague of darkness. It's one that I come back to again and again. And so this morning we will look at a few commentaries about what that plague meant for the Egyptians and for the Israelites, and then, of course, for us as well. So, Bernadette, it wouldn't be a Saturday morning if you didn't get to read the English. I know they've messed with the ropes here. I don't know what's going on.
They moved the ropey.
What happened? I don't know. I was gone for a week. I don't know.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Good stretch, Cantor.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Hold out your arm towards the sky, that there may be darkness upon the land of Egypt, a darkness that can be touched." Moses held out his arm towards the sky, and thick darkness descended upon all the land of Egypt for 3 days. People could not see one another, and for 3 days they could not get up from where he was. One could not get up from where he was, but all the Israelites enjoyed light in their dwellings.
Thank you. So we know it was dark. We know it was so dark that people could not move. We've all been in very dark situations, physically dark, I mean. And after a few moments, your eyes adjust, and you might not really be able to see where you're going, but you can kind of figure it out, right? There's like that momentary blindness, and then you're able to adjust. But the text seems to be saying that is not the case here. And that also, note, the Israelites were not affected by this particular plague, right? So what does it all mean? People could not see one another. We'll start with the Ibn Ezra. Kendra, I think we'll just kind of go around, and if
right.
people feel comfortable reading, that would be great.
Would one of you like to read the next?
You want to do?
No.
Okay. Can I read? Ibn Ezra?
Yeah, Ibn Ezra. It was it was so dark that the Egyptians could not even keep track of the days.
Right, so I don't know if you've ever been in a part of the world that has like, you know, the night, what are they called? The
opposite night?
The lights, like where it's like light 24 hours a day and then it's dark, you know, kind of up like in the north of Russia and that. So I actually was in Russia many years ago in the middle of that situation where at like 3 o'clock in the morning it looked like it was 9 a.m. right? So it's extremely disconcerting. So here's the opposite of that. It was so incredibly dark that there just was no way to physically feel the day go by. They lost all track of time. It's like they were suspended in midair. Okay. And Ramban, expands that idea.
The darkness was not merely absence of light, but a thick, dense darkness that descended. Just as a deep mine where no light can exist, this darkness extinguished every other light.
So the commentaries want us to understand that this is not your normal kind of darkness. This is not nighttime. This is some kind of supernatural situation. So we're going to get to it being not just a physical thing, but an emotional thing as well. Jeremy, why don't you read the Menachem Mendel, and then I'll have you read the Zornberg too.
No one could see past his own self. Thus, no one among the Egyptians could rise from his own place. The darkness was the only plague self-imposed.
I love this last line, right? This was the only plague that was self-imposed. So it's not only that it is dark outside, but there's some kind of internal darkness that has suddenly descended upon the Egyptians. Okay, why don't you read the Zornberg too, Jeremy, since you're right there.
There is something about the plague of darkness, about the way it reduces a human being to a blind and paralyzed vulnerability that defies rational and moral explanation. In this kind of darkness, one might say, repentance, teshuvah, becomes impossible. There is no possible response to the terror of such a condition.
So one might think differently, that this plague wasn't so bad, right? When we're reading through the different plagues, the locust destroyed all of the agriculture, right? There are other plagues that seem to wreak havoc with one's surroundings. And you might stop and say, why is this the penultimate plague, right? Why is this one the last one before the killing of the firstborn? And we start to understand that it is an emotional, intellectual plague as well, that finally the actions of the Egyptians, not just of the Pharaoh, right, of enslaving these people for 400 years, the toll of that is finally descending upon them. And they are finally getting an inkling of that sense of despair and darkness that perhaps the Hebrews have felt all along. Samantha, will you read the Kushner? And that Hebrew is koshech afelah.
All right. Koshech afelah. Perhaps this plague was not a physical darkness, but a spiritual or psychological state of darkness. The word melancholy comes from the Greek root meaning dark mood. People suffering from depression often lack the energy to move about or be concerned with anyone save themselves. Perhaps the Egyptians were struck by the revelation of how much their own comfort depended on the enslavement of others. In Jewish legal discussions defining how early one may recite morning prayers, dawn is defined as by the light by which one may recognize the face of a friend.
Right, so Kushner is helping us think about how deeply personal this plague was for each of these people. And truly, to effect teshuvah, one must first reckon with who they are and what they've done. It's not just enough to say, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, oh, that was a bad choice. One is supposed to really internalize that you have sinned in some way, large or small, on the way towards repairing and fixing that act or that behavior that you had in the past. So this particular plague is all about the Egyptians, but as it noted in the text, there was still light in the dwellings of the Israelites or the Hebrews. As Rabbi Jeffrey Salkin says, there is always light in our dwelling places, a light that is uniquely ours. The trick is to know that it is there to be illumined. The darkness, says the Midrash, separates people from each other, for it is our inability to see one another, to establish connection, to feel a bond. To be a Jew is to carry light into that darkness. So the idea in the story of the Exodus is that that light was there for the Israelites because their darkness was finally lifted, right? They were going to need to prepare now to move forward with their own journey. But when I think about the darkness that the Egyptians feel, it seems to resonate with where we are right now, which is we got plague upon plague heaping upon us, and it's important not to let that darkness consume us, but to look for that light. And as Salkin teaches, I think, the only way to bring light into the world is to seek it out in other people, to make connections with other people, to think about them. That way, you get to gain from their light and they get to gain from yours. The Egyptians are at that moment where they're finally recognizing and taking stock of their responsibility for the past. The Israelites are looking to the future that they're going to claim with light. That's what we have to do too. So, Cantor Berlin is going to chant this text for us, and we're going to share in the blessing, which is on page 250, if you want to chant along with me. One, two, three. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai hamivarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, nete yadcha al hashamayim, v'hi choshech al eretz Mitzrayim, v'yamesh choshech, vayet Moshe et yado al hashamayim, v'yehi choshech afela, b'chol eretz Mitzrayim sheloshet yamim. Lo ra'u ish et achiv, v'lo kamu ish mitchatav, totally messed up, sheloshet yamim, u'lechol b'nei Yisrael, haya or b'moshvotam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah. In the presence of Torah, we offer prayers for those who face the future not fully whole. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'imotenu Sarar v'kalei Avrachel. May the one who blessed our ancestors before us bring strength to all those who struggle against sickness and wholeness to all those who long to be healed. If there's someone in your life, someone you hold in your heart in need of healing, think of them now. Whisper their names out loud. Strengthened by each other's presence, we link the prayers for our loved ones and extend those prayers to those listed in our order of service as we sing together the words of Mishaberach on page 253.
Mishaberach avotenu kol habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say
I invite you to rise as we lift the Torah and address it. Page 252.
וזאת התורה שעשה משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה שעשה משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי לי לי, יאי לי לי, יאי לי לי לי, יאי לי לי לי.
Page 256.
עת חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה תחנום בכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
We continue with the concluding portion of our service. Aleinu is on page 283.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. As we turn to page 289 for meditation number 2, we note with sadness the death of Mark Herzberg, son of Rona Talmer, of blessed memory, and Dr. Harlan Herzberg, of blessed memory, and Barbara Herzberg, husband of Anne, father of Harrison and Haley, brother to Susan and Larry Hyman, Stacy and Rod Storm, and Vicky and Luis Izquierdo, of blessed memory, son-in-law to Tom and Pat Sheeran, and brother-in-law to April and Chris Childs, and his nieces and nephews, Justin Hyman, Shelby Hyman, Chelsea and Joey Fazioli, Lexi and Trevor Preston, Kelly and Al Wilson, Bennett Childs, and Creed Childs. A celebration of life will be held in the future. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. On this Shabbat, we consecrate the yard sites observed in our congregation this week of Rodolfo Alanis Applebaum, David Alexander, Bernice Alterman, A. Melvin August, Maury Beichman, Mary Ellen Blackard, Alphonse Block, Jack Braunstein, Eugene V. Bregman, Kenneth David Burris, Elisa Chiat, Gerald Jerry Stanley Cohn, Dr. Elmer Cooper, Sylvia Cottrell, Evelyn Eisenberg, Donald Eisner, Erna Epstein, Willa Martha Fields, Mervyn Feinsilver, Milton Fink, Aaron Forland, Sis Friedman, Jake J.J. Gates, Joseph Geisler, Willie German, Ingrid Glennon, Jack Gold, Barry Gornick, Fanny L. Half, Byron Halstead, Estelle Harris, Mary Harris, Tzvi Hockman, Sarah Menick Carmel, Dorothy Paula Levy Katz, Albert Keller, Evelyn Koenig, Eleanor Tootsie Collitz, Maricia Mangum, Paul Markey, Shirley Y. Markey, Max Menlevitz, Yolanda Munter, Jesse Orrell, Morris Persky, Jorge Placeres Madrid, Miriam Pullman, Lois Rich, Marlene Richmond, Harry Ringel, Victor Rodriguez, Doris Bretler Rosenkrantz, Dorothy Schwartz, Clarice Seaman, Sam Skolnick, Max Solomon, Arthur Stein, Dr. George I. Stern, Sam Weinstein, Carolyn West, Elaine Pudd Westheimer, Mary Bula Golf Weston, Matilda Wolf, and Herbert Wolf. To their names, we link the memories of 5 who in the last 30 days, Shloshim, have been laid to their eternal rest: Natalie Levin, Randy Weisener, Mary Lou Kimmelblatt, Barbara Wexner-Levy, and Marty Ebner. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing, along with the memories of those we hold in our own hearts each and every day. We turn to page 294 as we rise together, one congregation, to share in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitzkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'yizman karev v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'olam almei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitodar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, amen. What is All the World Still Our closing song? Okay, one.
We will conclude with Ki Shmera Shabbat, which I think is on page 330. Let's check. Ki Shmera Shabbat, Eishmereni, Ki Shmera Shabbat, Eishmereni, Oti le'omead, Beino u'veini,
Shabbat Shalom.